Uh, you'll have to use a microphone to ask questions. So welcome to our meeting today. It's my pleasure to, first of all, it's not my pleasure, but it's my responsibility, first of all, to send regrets and apologies from our club president, whose computer system at U of V was hacked this morning.
Ooh.
And so it's all hands on board. So she sends her apologies. And she's asked me to take over the responsibility of formally introducing our guest speaker. So Ken is the founding executive artistic director of Gallery 7 Theater. In addition to managing the organization, he occasionally directs, acts, does lighting design. He graduated from U of V with a bachelor's degree in English and theater back in 1997 and was honored to be named top 40 alumni at UFV. Ken is no stranger to most of us, and it's been a while since we've had him here. So Ken, please come and give us an update on what's happening with Gallery 7.
Thank you, Bruce. Yeah. You getting a good sound feed for me? Is that working for you? Okay, perfect. Well, thank you, Bruce, for the introduction, and thank you all for allowing me to be here to share just a little bit about what's been happening at Gallery 7 Theater and Performing Arts Society. That is our full name. Just a quick overview here. We were founded back in 1991, literally in the basement of the church. Dave, you were asking about Ebenezer Mennonite, and that's just down the road on Windsor Street. We incorporated as a nonprofit and are registered as a charity back in 2005. During our 30 plus years of theater production, we've done well over 100 productions, ranging from sketch reviews to full-scale Broadway-style musicals. As an organization, we're governed by a 7-member board of directors. We have approximately 150 volunteers, contract artists, and staff. I'm the only full-time staff member there, but we also have 2 part-time staff members, as well as a contract bookkeeper and a contract marketing associate. Generally speaking, our season runs from September through May, and we are definitely a year-round operation. Even though we may not have plays going on at specific times during the year, staff is busy regrouping, planning, and executing for our next series of productions. In terms of our audiences, we're primarily from Abbotsford and the surrounding Fraser Valley region, but we do attract visitors from as far away as North Vancouver, which is really great. Generally in a really good season, I mean, COVID messed things up a little bit here, but a season can attract up to 12,000 people in a given year. Right now, we're on track to hit that target by the end of this season, which is really cool. Mission, basically to engage the community with high quality theater that inspires hope, reconciliation, and redemption through exploring the spiritual, relational, and social aspects of life. Our ambition as a theater company here in Abbotsford is to be a catalyst as well as a focal point for artistic growth and expression here in the Fraser Valley, and a place where we can explore a wide variety of themes and stories in a safe, respectful, and inclusive environment. By the way, that picture is from one of our recent productions of The Magician's Nephew. Real quick overview here of our core beliefs. First of all, we believe theater has the power to impact our community in very positive ways and redemptive ways through authentic storytelling. I won't go and read the actual statements. We just went through a process where our board of directors and staff evaluated all of our mission, vision, and mandate statements, and we came up with these new ones. Community is really important. We want to be connected in the community, connected with the community. We also want to create a positive community for artists and theater fans here in our community. We also believe that theater has the power to encourage growth, whether it's on intellectual, spiritual, emotional levels. We also think that we can be a good conduit for helping recreational artists improve their skills and their talents on stage and behind the scenes. We do try to do mentorship where we can. We've had over time connections with local high schools to encourage young students to engage and hopefully develop as artists themselves. Excellence, we like to apply industry best practices to everything that we do. So we see ourselves as a bit of a hybrid, community-based, semi-professional theater where we apply those professional standards to everything that we do. We also believe in balance. And the best way for me to illustrate this is sometimes we do a musical and it's very, very successful. We have packed houses. And so people say, you should do more musicals. And I say, yes, but we also want to stretch our appreciation of the arts. We want to engage in other stories and themes that can challenge our community, that can inspire our community. And we want to balance the commercially appealing stuff with the more artistically appealing type material, but still do that in a fiscally responsible kind of way. I'm moving pretty quick. Are there any questions so far? Yeah. Our home, that's a great question. We have a office and a rehearsal space down by the Sumas border crossing in a little building called Huntington Station. It used to be marked by a great big horse, I think, out front. I don't know if you remember that, but it's right by the Sumas border crossing. So if you think you're about to cross into the States, you're in the right location. Yeah. So we're performing both at the Abbotsford Arts Center as well as the Matt Squee Centennial Auditorium. Most of our shows happen at the Arts Center, but sometimes we're also at the MCA, and sometimes if we can find other venues as well. Yeah, great. All right, moving along. General characteristics of our season. We typically produce 4 to 5 main stage shows each year. We try to include a couple of auxiliary events like Panic Squad, which is coming up this Friday, which is a comedy improv night. Generally, we perform in those time periods. November, December is a new addition to us. We're trying to speak into the Christmas season a little bit more. And then January, February, March, and May. Generally speaking, a play will require up to 90 to 100 hours of rehearsal time plus performances. This does not include the time it takes for our actors to memorize their lines, which could probably add another 20 or 30 or 40 hours to the time. A musical, on the other hand, will take up to 120 hours of rehearsal time plus everything else. We try to include educational courses as capacity allows. And during COVID especially, we tried to work with local playwrights to develop some new work. That's not necessarily new to what we've done. We've also been running Abbey Theatre Fest, which was an opportunity for playwrights from around the neighborhood to test out some work that they've been working on. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So for us, every once in a while, we like to offer acting courses or courses in directing or production or stage management. During COVID, we ran some online courses in sound production and design, that sort of thing. We try to include them when we can, but we are sort of stretched to the max in terms of our capacity right now. So sometimes we elect not to offer those. But it is an area that we'd like to target moving forward. Hopefully that answers your question. Yeah, cool. Good. All right. I'm moving pretty fast, so if I need to slow down, I can. I'm trying to meet my 20-minute mark. So in terms of our artistic mandate, of course, we select plays according to the mission that I mentioned earlier. We try to include at least one Canadian play in our program. We try to include something that explores faith or spiritual matters directly. And then we try to include 2 or 3 anchor commercially appealing type plays. In the midst of that, we try to include something that will stretch our audiences either artistically or thematically. We also like to try and include a big Broadway style musical every other year. We're probably going to be moving to a one every year as we try to build capacity, but for now it's every other year. And we work to fulfill promises to produce the commissioned or new works that were in development over the last couple of years. In fact, our new season, which we're going to be announcing on May the 19th, will include a world premiere of one of the plays that we've been developing over the last couple of years, which is very exciting. And it's written by a playwright here, or adapted by a playwright here in Abbotsford. So Bruce asked me to talk just a little bit about how the experience was going through COVID, especially given that we are a public-centered event or attendance in-person dependent event. So what happened? Basically, we started a production 2 weeks from opening. We had a second production that was cast, and that was shuttered prior to rehearsals starting. Staff were furloughed for 1 month in April, then brought back at 75% capacity when the emergency funding from the feds came into place. We did access federal emergency wage and rent subsidy funding. We also accessed the CEBA loan. and the community gaming branch, which we've been accessing for quite some time now, allowed us to use our grant to fund the acquisition of digital equipment to produce online theater. During that time period, we did produce 2 original theater productions online. We also hosted dramatic readings of a medieval and Shakespearean plays. The medieval plays were Everyman and what was the other one? The Second Shepherd's Play. And then the Shakespearean play was the Scottish play. Everyone know which one I'm talking about? Mackers. It's ingrained in our heads that we're not supposed to say it in, I guess we're not technically in a theater, but we also had a live stream edition of Panic Squad, and we produced a couple of online editions of the Abbotsford Theater Fest. ATF, as I like to call it here for our purposes. That was a chance actually for us to engage artists on a wider scale, not just theater artists, but also film artists as well as visual artists. So just a couple of things that we discovered during COVID. We recognized that because we were selling tickets at multiple locations, we had no way of contacting anyone in a case of emergency or cancellation. And so it became very, very apparent that we needed to move our box office operations in-house. And so we really leveraged our online system, which has been very successful for us. We were able to access the high quality live stream equipment that includes computers, broadcast switchers, and what else? Cameras and so forth. And that actually allowed us to have the infrastructure we needed to continue doing live streaming of a number of our productions, even post-COVID. We thought that it might be good for us to make our shows as accessible as possible. We're still exploring whether it's successful post-COVID, being a performing arts in-person centered event. People like to come in person, and so we're not seeing the same level of buy-in with our live streams as we used to. We were able to do some internal work on job descriptions. We had most of our patrons, and this is an area that I was really, really happy and thrilled with and quite humbled by, is that probably 80 to 90% of our audiences who had tickets to shows that had to be postponed elected to take a credit or convert the value of the ticket into a donation to the theater, which was greatly appreciated at the time. Post-COVID, we've finally been able to produce the 2 productions that were shuttered. The first one was Baskerville, a Sherlock Holmes mystery. That happened last season. And then finally, we were able to produce The Secret Garden, which was the one that was 2 weeks away from opening back when everything closed down. I was so looking forward to closing night, that final curtain, and breathing that sigh of relief that we had finally gotten through it. And it was a great deal of satisfaction to know that we had gotten through it finally. A couple of other things. We were able to focus some more time on original play development, as I mentioned. And another thing that was really, really positive is that our audiences and our donors remained consistent during that time. Even though we weren't producing a lot of stuff, our audiences understood the need for, or expressed their affirmation of the need for performing arts and theater in our community by continuing with their support during that time. I'll stop there for just a quick second, see if there's any other questions. Yeah, go ahead, Bruce.
Laura's sake. So, Ken, big fan of the work you've done, have been for years, but in watching your slide presentation, I noticed there's something, basically all your pictures are white people.
Okay.
So we are a culturally diverse, multi-ethnic community. Has there ever been any thought, or when you reviewed your mandates, about creating a theater experience for those for whom English is not a first language? I mean, you talked about doing one play a year that has to do with faith. Yep. I'm assuming the default there is the Christian faith, which is not the default faith of 40% of our residents. Where does multiculturalism come into your mandate? That's question one. Mm-hmm. And question two is, you are not only the creator and the director, you are sort of the soul of Gallery 7. And I'm not suggesting this needs to be done in the short term, but has your board started talking about succession planning?
It's almost like you're reading my mind, Bruce. Okay, I'll start with the second question first. Yes, we have definitely been talking about succession. I'm looking at the next 10 years or so where I'm still obligated to work, and then I want to be free of that obligation. So I would like Gallery 7 to continue well beyond me. And so we've been taking steps over the last few years to put in the stepping stones for that succession. Things like getting policies down on paper, et cetera. That conversation is part of the 3 to 5 year strategic plan that we've just adopted. And we're about to start some of that process as well. To your first question, we are definitely very concerned about that. When I look at these pictures, I see that it is a definitely what seems like a white Western European centric theater company. And in some ways, that is who we are. But at the same time, we are a community-based organization for the entire community. And it's a process that we want to be very genuine and honest about, and we want to be deliberate about. We do welcome people of all backgrounds. And when I say 150 volunteers, they are from all backgrounds. We are emphasizing more that we want this theater company to be connected with the community. As part of our strategic plan moving forward, we do want to take a look at what it means to connect with other cultural groups and to do so in a respectful and legitimate way. Because we also want to avoid sort of the backside of that, where we don't want to be seen as white saviorism or, things like that. So those things are all definitely in process. Does that help answer your question? Okay, great. Moving forward, I just mentioned it. We have a comprehensive 3 to 5 year strategic plan. We talked about increasing community connections, building a stronger financial foundation. We're just finishing our official 30th celebration season, and we're looking forward to the launch of our next season starting this autumn. Back to your question, Bruce, we also want to make sure that we have the capacity in place to do that, because we don't want to just do check boxes. If we're going to do it, we want to be genuine about it, if that makes sense.
I would just say there's a real opportunity with us in Abbotsford to tap into not only resources federally and provincially, but culturally with First Nations. I mean, they're a people of storytelling.
Yeah.
You are a people of storytelling. To find an opportunity to work together would seem to me to open up some really interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. One of the big things that we're working on right now is transitioning to a new box office system that will actually give us a tremendous suite of tools to better engage our audiences as well as our donors. That's a 6-month process as we move data over and get used to the system. Yeah, go ahead.
And is that box office something that you could use as a rent out to other organizations in the communities? So for instance, maybe using Eventbrite right now, but I'm looking at perhaps an opportunity for you from a marketing perspective.
The idea is a seed right now, but we're definitely aware of the potential for us being able to use that box office system to help other community groups, as well as help us build the capacity we need to start doing some of the things that Bruce was talking about, among other things. Hopefully that answers the question there. Yeah. And as a full-time operation, I've been talking about this a lot. We're bumping up against capacity challenges. One of the hardest things that we bump up against is the lack of venue availability. We have the MCA, which has been great to us. We have the Abbotsford Arts Center that's also been tremendous to us. But as you know, with business, if you're limited by your infrastructure, you can't grow beyond that infrastructure. And the Abbey Arts Center, for example, is owned by the school district and has to accommodate a wide variety of other events. And so we're locked into a certain schedule and limits to how long our runs can go. And it's very difficult to capitalize on a very successful show if you can't extend the run or go to a 3-week run, for example. Well, and the MCA, and that's not a very sustainable model for a theater performing arts group as well. And so I'm hoping that the city will see the light and that they will move forward with some of their arts and cultural planning much earlier than what they have indicated in their latest plan. We can talk about that at some other point. Limited staffing. And then one of the other things that we noticed with COVID is that a lot of people were affected by COVID. And we saw that a lot of artists either left doing theater or they moved out of the valley to other things. So we're in a bit of a rebuilding phase there. Yeah.
Ken, question on availability of venues. Outdoor theater, is there an opportunity if there were a theater here, an outdoor theater for you to be engaged with that?
Yeah, we've talked a little bit about what outdoor theater could look like. I'm a little hesitant to jump into summer stuff here, especially in the valley, because usually when the weather gets nice, everyone's in their gardens and they're out and about or away. So the sustainability of that. Now, being outdoors, it's been very successful in Vancouver, so it could be successful here. Again, because we're bumping up against the capacity issue, we haven't really launched into it, but it might be something that we look at moving forward as an option. Yeah. I think that's everything. So coming up, we've got Panic Squad Comedy Improv starting this Friday night at 7:30. I invite you to come back to the MCA for Jeeves Intervenes. This is a farce written by Margaret Rather. It's based on characters by P.J. Woodhouse. I don't know if, does anyone know the author? You quite often will hear the butler Jeeves. Well, this is a fun comedy with Jeeves as a central character in it. And then we're announcing our season on May the 19th for the coming year. Okay, last call for questions.
What are the skill sets you're looking for? You're currently short mounting production.
Good question. I think it starts with just having a passion for theater, and there's a lot of different options. We are looking for people who can work with our front of house team as ushers. It's a good way to see a show for free while welcoming our audiences to the theater, working in concession. We're also finding that there's challenges just in the contract artist, so set designers, lighting designers, etc. A lot of people are centralized in Vancouver, and as we know, transit past Langley is a bit of a challenge. So being able to have the resources to access those folks. But yeah, I mean, we can always build out in all areas. Yeah, go ahead.
So Ken, you're a graduate of the UFB theater program, and just checking in with you, I'm presuming that you still have links to that for some of these, backstage and those kinds of folks that might be using this as some kind of a practicum idea.
UFE has changed their approach to theater training, and unfortunately, we've lost that connection. And I think it's to our detriment, but also to UFE's detriment. And we've tried to re-engage that, but it seems like the department is on a different track there. I did have a conversation recently with one of the former professors there, and we're going to try and re-engage that relationship one more time. That is another big challenge or threat that we're facing as a theater company here in Abbotsford. UFE has gone a bit of a different route. I think well, I shouldn't speak for what UFE does. But we've also heard that Trinity has now closed their theater program as well. And that I think this next year is going to be the last 2 semesters that they're offering the theater program, and then that's gone. And so the arts ecosystem here in the Fraser Valley is under a bit of strain, unfortunately. We're looking at how we can fill some of those gaps, but it takes time to do that. I hope that answers your question.
And on behalf of the club president, who again sends her regrets, I want to thank you for being here. I apologize to the small crowd, but we have recorded your presentation. We hope that the rest of our club will take the time to watch the presentation. Deanna will be sending you a certificate of appreciation, because we don't give up pens and mugs here. Although if you're short pens and mugs, there's lots of us here that have, we have surplus, but
Okay,
we sponsor a young woman in Africa.
cool.
And you'll be getting that certificate in short order. So let's thank Ken for taking the
Cool.
time to bring us.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Okay.